When you make yourself visible, you set yourself up for judging yourself and for allowing others to judge you. And that is tough. And your mind monkeys don't like that. And they don't want you to do that. They don't want other, like, at all. So my advice is for people who are experiencing that is, number one, to acknowledge the reality, to recognize that this is normal and have conversations, and also to look at the evidence of all the things that you have been able to learn, all the skills you have been able to develop in your lifetime, the things that you have achieved, and that when you start to detail those, you know, what tech have you learned? What conversations have you had? You know, what achievements did you have in your employed career? You know, how many new things have you done? How many new skills have you gained? And see that not as evidence that you've come as far as you can, but as evidence that when you apply yourself, you absolutely have the capacity to learn and grow.
Well, I have an amazing master mindset person coming to speak today. She is known as the Mind Monkey Tamer that can help you ditch your self doubt and fears. And she's the founder of Beyond Boundaries Coaching. And on top of all of that, she loves coaching rule breakers and mischief makers. So welcome, Jacqui Jagger.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. It's great to be here.
So I just have to start out and I just have to ask you this question. So why do you like coaching the rule breakers and mischief makers? Because that's you go after my heart with that, because I'm a rule breaker. So tell me more about that.
So I've got a touch of the rebel about me, and I don't like being told what to do. And so for me, that was a natural. So when I made the move into coaching from my employed career, I didn't want to be somebody that was going to tell people what to do. I wanted to work with the people that had that drive, that oomph, and who wanted to find their own path. So yeah, that's my joy.
That's great. I always have to, for me, a rule breaker or even like a mischief maker, I think they are individuals that don't like the status quo and they like to just push the envelope. And quite frankly, I think that's what entrepreneurs are. I mean, I have never met an entrepreneur that isn't that in some shape or form. So I absolutely adore that you say that right out in front, and that's on your website. So for this call or for this interview, my goal for this is I want to help entrepreneurs master their mindset. So tell me a little bit about like steps that they can do every day to master their mindset.
Oh, I love this topic. So there's so much that I could say. So let's try and distill it into some really helpful, practical steps that people can take. So the first thing that I would say is it's about people becoming aware of how important their goals are to them. Because very often when people are not taking the action that they need to take, it's because they've lost that emotional connection with why they need to take it. And anything you do at a surface level is going to feel harder work if there's not that emotional connection at a deeper level. So very often my clients are people who logically, they know if I do the steps, I'll get the result, but they find that really difficult. And the first step is always reconnect with your reason. Why is this important? Why does it matter?
Okay.
So I would say definitely start with that. I think another practical step that people can take is to really notice and label their emotions. So as entrepreneurs, we will typically ride the roller coaster. It's like every single day, half of a day you're at the top, the other half you're kind of riding down screaming, you know, your confidence is on an all-time high. The next day it's kind of, oh, do I know anything?
Right.
So High emotions are par for the course, and they can vary. And one of the things that is really important is to identify and label and realize that you don't have to act based on emotion. You can act based on what's important. And taking that pause to label the emotion means that you respond rather than react. You get to ask yourself that question: what is important right now, rather than how do I feel?
Mm-hmm.
And so that for me is a really simple but really helpful practice. So I use it an awful lot myself. So if I'm feeling frustrated, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, if I'm feeling anxious, if I'm whatever those, particularly the negative emotions might be, by noticing them. So the author Susan David talks about a concept that I love, which is treat emotions as signposts. They point you to what you want or need or what's important to you. So
Right.
rather than just react on the basis of them, when you understand what they're pointing to and what's caused them to arise, you create that pause so that you can respond rather than react.
No,
So
I
that
like
I
that a
would say
lot.
is a really simple one.
Okay. Let me dig in a little bit into the first point,
Mhm.
finding the why, because people have asked me that question, like, how do I get a strong enough why? Do you have any tricks or anything that you can suggest for entrepreneurs to use to really find what they are so passionate about, or what's their why they're getting up every day, excited, finding that?
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions?
So absolutely, this comes up a lot for my clients. And I think the Simon Sinek stuff around find your why, people
Mm-hmm.
sometimes feel like it has to be big and out there and a really, huge and meaningful why. And it's kind of almost, my why feels a bit insignificant. Is it good enough? Is it important enough? If it's important enough to you, it's important enough. And what I would suggest is to start with the question of really thinking about what's important to you, just generally in your life and work. What matters to you? What's brought you? Reflect on your story. What's brought you to this place? What brought you into this line of work? Because very often the why starts to become obvious and you just lost sight of it because the hustle and the grind and the hard work has just kind of disconnected you from the feeling that's
Mm-hmm.
already there. So you don't necessarily have to go looking outward for it. It's often more effective to look inward and remember what brought you into it. And if I share my example, one of the things that has become really apparent to me is that over the course of the last year, I had a bereavement. So my nan passed away, and I found the most beautiful poem in her memory box that she left in her house. It's ironic because she used to love thriller and suspense novels, and we found it, and it's a complete mystery. Where did this clipping come from? And the poem is called Be All That You'd Hope to Be.
Mm.
And for me, it's as simple as that. That was like her message to me to fulfill my potential, to become all that I hope to be, to not just accept average as being good enough, to continue to challenge myself, to persist with what matters. So my why is not about, a multinational corporation or billions of dollars or anything like that. It's very personal. And my nan lived, she was born just before the war. She was evacuated during the war. She lived a very tough life. And I'm so privileged to have the opportunities that I have in front of me. And for me to fulfill my potential matters enormously. For other people, the why is often related to different elements of their family. So a lot of my female clients, it's about being a role model for their children. It's
Mm.
about showing what is possible when you apply yourself, when you have persistence and are consistent and are dedicated. So yeah, that would be my thing, is look inwards, understand what matters, what's meaningful to you, and your why will reveal itself.
Absolutely. Almost have even maybe a quiet time to do that and reflect. And, if you need that motivation every day, maybe even have a quiet time every day to focus on that, among other things as well. But I love that your Nan basically sent you a message beyond the grave with that poem. She must have been thinking about you when she clipped that out. So that's actually really lovely. Really
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah, it means a huge amount to me. And yeah, I just loved as well that element of mystery, that none of us could ask her the question, and that it was mystery and suspense novels that she loved. So it felt really fitting.
Absolutely. I could see it in your face how much it really meant to you. And that actually is when it just, there's a little bit off topic, but I think sometimes when people have this moment of love or a moment of kindness, you're just paying it forward to someone, and it's always something good, to look at, what can I do today that maybe I can pass something, I can pay it forward for someone else. So, and that could be a why as well. Like, what can you do today to pay it forward? So, okay. So let me ask you another question. So when entrepreneurs, there's that imposter syndrome. What do you do when you start thinking like, why should anybody listen to me? Or maybe I should get a job instead of doing this, or um, this is never going to happen. What can you do about that? How can you get past that? Because it's a very common thing. No matter how successful you could be at the pinnacle of success and still have that. I interviewed somebody yesterday that has had this amazing success, and we talked about that because he brought it up as an example for himself that he still struggles with imposter syndrome. So, any tips about that?
So I had a question once around exactly that, which was along the lines of, will it ever go away? Will I ever be able to turn my back on imposter syndrome? And I was like, yeah, sure you can. Just shut yourself in the house and don't do anything that challenges you.
Oh gosh,
And
that's not a good option.
and when you look at it that way, it's not, but it can feel appealing. The security of getting a job can feel appealing. And so when I talk about helping people to tame their mind monkeys and that negative chatter and self-sabotage, this comes up all the time. And I think one thing that's really important is for people to recognize how common this is, and to find communities and authentic conversations where it's acknowledged. Because particularly for people that are online entrepreneurs that are living in that world, we compare our reality and our kind of behind the scenes raw documentary with everybody else's show reel. We see the stuff that they allow us to see, and we compare that. And we assume that things are easy for other people, or that they've had overnight success, or that things are all shiny and polished in every area of their life. And that's just not true. It's everybody has insecurities, doubts, and the further you go, you've already come so far. And so it can seem like, well, hang on, I've already come so far. Can I really make that leap again? Like, can I really go further? And do you know what? The power of human potential is infinite. It is incredible. And self-doubt is there as a evolutionary terms, it's a protection mechanism. It's there to stop you doing stuff that would, particularly with fear of judgment, plays into it, which visibility is a huge part as an entrepreneur. And when you make yourself visible, you set yourself up for judging yourself and for allowing others to judge you. And that is tough. And your mind monkeys don't like that. And they don't want you to do that. They don't want other,
Right.
like at all. So my advice is for people who are experiencing that is number one, to acknowledge the reality, to recognize that this is normal and have conversations, and also to look at the evidence of all the things that you have been able to learn, all the skills you have been able to develop in your lifetime, the things that you have achieved, and that when you start to detail those, what tech have you learned? What
Mm-hmm.
conversations have you had? What achievements did you have in your employed career? You know, how many new things have you done? How many new skills have you gained? And see that not as evidence that you've come as far as you can, but as evidence that when you apply yourself, you absolutely have the capacity to learn and grow.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think when you get that feeling and you're out there and you put yourself out there and you become very visible, it does become uncomfortable. But I also think, your choices are exactly what you said. You could go hide in your house and and not have that uncomfortable feeling, or you can become visible or play bigger or be bold and have that uncomfortable feeling and just almost face it or go into it, because it's going to make you stronger. It's going to make you better.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a Stoic saying about hard choices that give you an easy life or easy choices that give you a hard life. And
Mm.
when you back away from challenges in the short term, that gives you the easy life. But
Hmm.
in the long term, it's a harder life. It's a life that you don't want. It's a life that you didn't sign up for.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm going to have to look that up and find out who actually said that.
I think it's Seneca, but don't trust me on that. Google.
We'll find out. Yeah, we'll definitely find out. Dig on that. What about, have you ever had the question, how do I get more clarity? How can I see where I need to go, the vision where I need to go? Do you get that posed to you?
Yes, very much so. So, one phenomenon that I see a lot is that as we develop from kids to adults, we get the dreaming kind of almost squashed out of us.
Mm,
So,
yes.
what happens is we get to this stage where we feel like we're only allowed to dream about stuff we can make a plan for. We can only dream as big as we can see the solution for.
Hmm.
And that really hampers the clarity of vision. Because if you feel like you have to be able to know what steps to take in order to get there, you're automatically going to limit your vision.
Hmm.
So when I work one to one with clients, I often use a guided visualization process to detach them from that planning and to just step into that visualization. But people can do that and practice that skill for themselves as well. And I just say, let yourself have a daydream. Like if there was
Hmm.
no limits and you could wave a magic wand and you didn't have to worry about how, what's the life you'd actually want? What do you know about the life you'd actually want? And just practice bringing that to life. Like make it a movie in your head and just keep going back to it and just like be ridiculous with it. Make it bigger and
Hmm.
crazier every time. And don't worry, like just say to yourself, it's okay. I don't need to know how. I can just daydream for whatever I want,
Hmm.
because your brain is a massive problem solving machine. And if you let it be honest with itself about what it wants, some of the solutions it will start to create in your subconscious will be some of the steps that will take you not necessarily all the way, but start you on that path.
Absolutely. I always believe that if you put big goals out there or big dreams out there, the steps will start to appear if you're open and you just keep that forward motion and be open to them. So please, obviously, Jacqui knows what she's talking about, and she's really passionate about helping entrepreneurs get rid of their mindset monkeys. so that you can move forward in your business. So thank you so much, Jacqui, for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation. I've loved it. Thank you.